recorded. All right. Would you just state your full name for the record here?
UrinatingTree.
All right. Yes. We'll go with that then.
Well, I could do my real name if you want.
All right. Would you give us your real name then?
Sure. My name's Steve Linkowski.
All right. Thank you. All right. I should probably also ask this before we get going to since I have given you and FPV money through the dumpster fire. You aren't just doing this because I done that, right?
No, God, no. I do this for pretty much anyone who asks.
All right. Thank you.
Absolutely, man. So, as I said, anyone who asks, I'll try to get on as many as I can. So, I feel like it's the least I can do. Because I was like you at one time, man. I was always, trying to, get stuff working and do that sort of stuff. So, I mean, trust me. And I feel like I'd rather, if I were in your shoes, I'd want the same thing out of you. That's the way I see it, at least.
All right.
I've been like that, man.
Oh, I can find it. All right, so I guess we'll just start with a hard one here. Why the name UrinatingTree?
That was I wish I had this incredible story, but I really don't. It's just me trying to be an edgelord and pretend it was funny when I was 15. It's it would be a good Xbox Live name, UrinatingTree. And I just ran with it. It's weird.
All right.
So that's all it is. And it's weird. It's stuck. I don't know how it's stuck, but I guess it's stuck.
All right. So next up, your oldest public video, I'm assuming there were probably videos before this, but the oldest public one on your channel is a video game review, in the loosest sense of the word, of Superman 64. Now, of all things to do, why video games and why this game? A game that you even admit in the video that it's been beaten to death.
Oh, the one thing was I was just trying to experiment with a bunch of different things at the time. I used to yell at old Sega Genesis games, but that was back when I was in college. I just needed a creative release. I had the ambition of being a broadcaster myself. When I was in high school, I wanted to be an anchor on television. That, doing the morning announcements, I like doing this. You know what? Maybe I can do this as a career. So, go to college, try to learn that sort of stuff, and I use that as sort of a supplement in a way. That and sort of as a creative release. So that's where that stuff came into play.
All right, now looking at your earliest videos, I feel like I've discovered an ancient civilization. And
yes, it is completely different. That was just throwing shit at the wall. I didn't even care about views. I did not expect to be doing this. So back at the time, it's just what the hell did I stumble into? This was a different channel.
It's completely disconnected from anything you do now.
Exactly.
All right, now I'm going to get to the sports stuff soon, but just one last question on that part. Now, going back to your early videos, I noticed that your sense of self-deprecation is not something new. That was there from day one.
Oh, no,
Where does that come from?
That's been there a long time.
So where does that self-deprecating view come from?
I don't know. I would say, I don't want to get into the last, deep meta conversation or any of that stuff, but I mean, I don't know where it really comes from, to be honest with you. So.
All right, then. Moving on. All right, so after, hang on, I should probably have had this pulled up here. You could tell I prepared for this so well.
Don't worry, man.
Okay, so.
I'm just writing up sports ball, so no big rush.
All right, so after your video Half-Ass Theater, The Great Debate, you just completely disappeared from YouTube for about 4 years, unless there were some unlisted videos in between time.
What actually ended up happening was those were just re-uploads. Those were made, that Great Debate one, I think was made back in 2008, 2009. Oh. They were old vids that I'm just you know what? My computer's dying. Let's just re-upload them and whatever. Oh, so those ones weren't even fresh vids. Those were just some random stuff I re-uploaded. So it's actually even longer than that. So it'll probably be more 2011, 2012 when I stopped, I would say.
Oh, Lord. All right.
Yeah. So the channel was long.
So then what brought you back to YouTube?
Well, what brought me back to YouTube was the 2016 election. What ended up happening was I got pissed off, and I'm just thinking like, okay, this is bullshit. I just want to ramble on about it for a couple minutes. So I'm like, you know what? Let's do a YouTube video about it. And I didn't expect shit out of it. I mainly thought it was just gonna be, okay, I'll do this one video. It'll probably get like 10 views. Go on with my life.
Currently has 139,000 views.
Yeah, I did not expect that when I made that. Not in the slightest. I wish that one wasn't the one that aged well. I wish it was another one, but it is what it is. So at the time, like, I found like an old microphone that I had in my room. I think it was from 2007. It's like one of those old Radio Shack microphones. As you can see, it's like really tinny. It's like moving around all the time. Like the quality is bad. I was running off of Windows Movie Maker.
Oh,
so it's just like, it's in terms of quality, like it was bad. But at the time, I'm thinking like after, I'm like, you know what? I felt good. You know, you just had that creative release again. I was going through a rough time at work. I mean, I was getting fucked over for promotions and, you know, felt like I was in a dead end situation. So I was just like, okay, I'll just use this as like a creative release. So at the time, I was just doing more random stuff. So like there were like a couple other stuff that doesn't fit with the channel, but it's just, you know, just there, I feel like.
All right. So then up to this point, the closest thing you had done to a sports video was WrestleMania, as it was titled. And that was more of a shitpost related to sports.
Yeah, that was a shitpost on that guy with the glasses.
Yeah.
That's what it really was.
So then after years of shitpost and whatever the hell Sherlock Holmes was, why a sports video?
With Cleveland, that was at the time in 2016 when they were looking at about to go 0-16. There was a video that I had watched a long time ago, and I kind of caught up with again. It was called Only in Cleveland, the history of the Browns after the move. But the problem with that vid, it's fantastic, but it only goes to the beginning of the Jimmy Haslam era. And I mean, as anyone who follows the Browns can attest, the Haslam era has been a fucking shit show.
Even more of a shit show than the Browns.
Exactly. So, and that's when it stopped and nobody really updated it. And so what I got to thinking is, you know, try something new. So what I wanted to do was try and bridge that video with the current era and try and sort of mend it. I mean, I don't know if I did that well in that regard, but that was what my goal was. And I didn't think I'd be doing another one. I mean, I figured it would be like, okay, I'll do a video on the Browns. I'll probably get a couple hundred views or something like that, and it'll be to it. So a couple more weeks pass. Nothing really happens there. This is about the time the Jacksonville Jaguars completely bottom out. You know, Gus Bradley, I think, just got fired. Team went 2-14. Blake Bortles looks horrible. Like, nothing looks good. So I'm just sitting there like, man, this is bullshit. This team's terrible. And I'm like, you know what? Let's just make a video about it. So it became like 3 minutes of just me rambling about Jacksonville. And I feel like it kind of like I've stuck with that path ever since.
All right, you answered the next question I was going to ask, so let's go to the next one. So your locale videos, even to this day, kind of largely follow a formula of a team that's at its nadir, how it got there, and who the key people responsible for players to management, etc. So presentation-wise, if you could go back and redo them, is there any of these early locale videos or anything about those early videos you'd change? If so, what?
The problem with that is it's mostly based on hindsight. So, like, at the time, like, they look like crap. They could have turned it around. I mean, there are a lot of ones that think, like, okay, this video aged poorly. And then, like, there are some times where it just, like, goes from aging to aging poorly back to aging well again. Like, you know, Philadelphia, Chicago, the Rams.
Yeah, seriously, with the Bears, all you have to do is just swap out Jay Cutler for Mitch Trubisky, and it still holds up perfect.
Oh, it's not even about Trubisky. It's about just, like, the management decision that came into it. Moving up one selection and trading several mid-round picks. That was horrible at the time.
Seriously.
The pick was Deshaun Watson, and you know who those mid-round picks became, right?
I couldn't say without looking it up.
Alvin Kamara, Fred Warner, and Tedrick Thompson.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it's bad.
Wow. And even one of those I could have told you would have been a success in the NFL, helping Alvin Kamara.
Yeah, Fred Warner is a really solid middle linebacker. Tedrick Thompson is decent like depth guys, starting caliber and slots. So that's a horrible trade.
All right, so next up, all right. The first real time you broke away from the locale videos were quote, the Haters Guide to 2017 Playoffs and the Washington Capitals, A Legacy of Failure. What made you produce these type of videos?
The Haters Guide was the first time I really thought there could be something in this. I did it more as an experiment. I had an idea of it like a while ago. Like, first one I kind of thought of, it's like, oh, why don't I just do like a little Haters Guide to the 2016 NHL season? But this was before I went back to YouTube, and I didn't really have the focus to do anything on that. So at the time, I'm just thinking, you know what? Let's just make a little quick thing on the playoffs. Maybe I'll get a couple hundred views and people telling me I suck. That was my main goal.
21,000 views to this.
Absolutely no expectations. The one time I remember shitting my pants, I remember going to bed, I think was something like 550 or 650 subscribers. Then I wake up the next morning, there are 100 more subscribers that in my account. I'm just sitting there like, what? Wait, what? And I thought I was just like, I was losing my mind, or maybe there was a typo on the computer. And I think I remember getting something like 10,000, 15,000 views, which at the time was huge. I'm used to getting maybe like a couple hundred. So I figured it's like, okay, it's probably a fluke. So I'll just do the Super Bowl, you know, something maybe to just like follow up on it. Maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't. That ends up getting even more. And I'm just sitting there like, okay, I think I've drunkenly stumbled onto something. I have to keep going. And that's when I made the decision, okay, I should focus on this story of like, oh, I had planned this since I was like a child and I'm following my dreams. No, I stumbled onto it. That's really all it is to it.
All right, then.
I mean, I don't know how I'm still going with it. I've lost a lot longer than I thought I would, but
well, it's about 414,000 subscribers who like your work. So
I know
you're doing
that still amazes me, to be honest with you. And then you get the stories of like people saying like, "Hey, your videos got me through a shit time. Maybe my parent or grandma died. Maybe I'm dealing with a rough situation at school or work. Maybe like I was in like a car accident or something like that." And said like, "Hey, your shit got me through it." It's like, that's sobering, man. I mean, it really is. I'm like, my shit did that? Really?
All right, now fast forward to, and I know that's a weird way to just transition from that topic.
Yeah, no worries, man.
Fast forward to the middle of 2017, you start an annual tradition of, and you've probably figured out what this is by now, like a video about the New York Mets on July 1st. So why an annual video instead of one whole locale video for a team that, let's be honest, probably more than deserves it at this point?
What? I actually ended up doing that one. I thought it was going to be a one-off. I actually did the first Mets video a couple days before Bobby Bonilla Day. Because at the time, like, I just thought, like, oh, it's just the Mets. But then end up everyone's getting injured. The bullpen's a fucking mess. Sandy Alderson's not really doing anything. The Wilpons. So the problem is, like, every consecutive year, they turn into this massive shit show despite their expectations. So my plan was to just do it every July 1st because July 1st is Bobby Bonilla Day, which is they have to pay him over $1 million because of deferred payments for a contract they bought out in 2000.
And how long does that contract run? It still
2035. Oh, unfortunately, it probably won't be the same since the Wilpons are gone. Steve Cohen's coming, and he'll probably throw a lot of money around. It's sad. We're losing the Mets. I might do a closure vid on them. You know, just similar like the last season, and then be like, Mets man's getting laid off. So sad.
All right, so you've never been a guy who's afraid to chuck the hometown team under the fire. So especially when your Yinzer really show in your first video about the Steelers. So what made you decide the team needed a video and needed one now?
I wanted a challenge vid. I wanted one that wasn't like, oh, this team fucking sucks. It's like you want one that's like has a different angle to it. And the Steelers have been kind of getting on my nerves for a good bit in terms of that regard. So it was either them or the Green Bay Packers. The Packers were dealing with huge management issues. They didn't invest in free agency. They were wasting Aaron Rodgers. So either would have been technically the right pick. I chose the Steelers because, I've marinated in this shit for years. And I think that's what makes it technically a better video. Instead of like, oh, this guy's this passionate. It's like, oh, this guy's followed this team since he was a kid. Like, I remember when Neil O'Donnell threw that interception in Super Bowl 30. He threw 2 of them right to Larry Brown, gave him millions of dollars. I think I remember just being, like, really pissed off over that. It's like, I still haven't forgiven Neil O'Donnell. Fuck Neil O'Donnell.
All right, now, it's sports ball time here. I'd argue these are probably your most anticipated videos every season. Like, where did the idea for these videos come from, especially during the NFL season?
Once again, it was an experimentation. I thought, like, you know what? We'll just do something on, like, the week. I didn't even expect to do these every week. I thought it was just going to be like, oh, some lighthearted shit. Like, maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't. Like, that stuff just clicks because I feel like NFL games are an event. And that's where it kind of comes in. I remember my first year. The time I noticed I had to do them every week was once, Donald Trump started bitching about the end. And I'm like, okay, I have to do this every week because this is a fucking shit show.
Yeah, if I remember.
But like by the middle of the season, the end of the season, I kind of felt like I hit a wall. And I didn't really feel like I found form in it until the second year.
All right, so since we brought it up here, like, you were also, since you were doing these for like weekly, like, what is it that made that work while, say, the AAF and the XFL, you were only doing these like bi-weekly?
The thing with the AAF was there weren't enough to do like once a week. There were only 4 games. And with the AAF was, I remember just getting like really disillusioned with it after, everything went to shit and it shut down. Because they were talking about shutting it down by week 2.
Week 2, yeah.
Yeah, until like Tom Dundon came in and gave them an extra lease on life. And like with the AAF really souring on me, I decided not to do it with the XFL because it's like, okay, what happens if this league randomly shuts down in the middle of the week?
Which
it technically did for different reasons. It actually lasted less than the AAF, which is a shame. They did nothing wrong.
I'm surprised they didn't even make it a season there.
Yeah. They were doing well there too.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. They probably would have lasted a couple seasons with the way they were going, but like the pandemic threw everything out of whack, and it's a shame.
Yeah. All right. So sprinkled in between all these haters guides, sports ball, and locale videos are your congrats insert team videos. My favorite being Congrats Orioles 2019, which was an homage to an all-time classic, Big Bill Hell's Cars.
Mm-hmm.
What's your thought process behind these videos?
Sometimes it's just a random idea I have. Sometimes it's just is long prepared. It varies on what it is. Sometimes I feel like a spectacular moment needs that sort of thing. But at the same time, like I don't do it for every single series because either like they don't deserve it or I don't have a great idea for it.
And then
they have some other ones that are legitimately wholesome, ones that have like a long time that's in between championships and the first cup, like Blues, Chiefs. The Astros were the first one, even though I don't know if that's one's aged well, to be completely honest with you. But
oh yeah, there is one about the Astros there.
Mm-hmm. That was the first one I did. It was a wholesome Hans Zimmer's Time. I feel that one is the perfect like transition and piece to use, just because it builds up and you just get that past failure and it's finally released.
Boy, that one's aged so well now, considering some of the things we've.
That's Astros, yeah. I'm gonna do a video on just Houston sports as a whole, because if you technically look at it, they kind of sold their soul for that 2017 championship. If you look at every single thing that's happened since then, for all 3 teams.
All right, so sometimes these congrats videos are less comedic in tone and more just yinzer rage, like Congrats Steelers after their loss to the Jaguars in 2018. So what led to this pivot?
That was me just blowing off steam, because I saw that coming from a mile away. If you looked at their games from 2017, they followed the same formula. They would play like shit for most of the game. They'd have huge flaws against really bad teams. They didn't even play a legit starting quarterback. Like Packers didn't have Aaron Rodgers. The Texans didn't have Deshaun Watson. And then they'd follow the same formula. Like Antonio Brown would make this great catch. Ben would make a spectacular play. Le'Veon Bell would make these great moves. And then Chris Boswell would kick this 50 to 55-yard field goal right in the middle. Steelers would win and the game. And I'm just sitting there like, you can't survive like this.
Nobody
and then
something.
Yep. And then Jacksonville just like came in and kicked our ass. And I'm sitting there like, really? They were doing nothing but talk shit the whole past week. And that one was just like, okay, I got to get this shit off.
And it was glorious.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So around this time, you had also started doing a podcast that eventually became The Dumpster Fire with the Bald Giants fan, Mr. 5 Points Vids. How did this come about?
He had the idea. He just figured, it's like, hey, let's start a podcast. Like, okay, I think I can't believe we've still been doing it that long. I know we originally did it on 5 Points channel, I think in the middle of 2017. I want to say. Yeah, so we've been slowly growing it since then. We ended up starting our own channel because he ended up getting suspended from streaming for 3 months because of I think he was showing footage of like the Rockets Warriors in 2007 or 2018. So we ended up doing our own channel. Those were the longest 3 months I feel like we ever had. It's just like, Jesus, are these 3 months over yet? Because you're just sitting there in purgatory. It's just like we're just talking and just like throwing in the air.
Okay, so in your, I think you kind of answered this already, but in your Sports Ball vid on Week 17 of the NFL season, you said that you weren't sure if you were going to keep doing these kind of weekly recaps of the NFL in the future. So what changed in between then and 2018 that made you do it again?
I think the main thing was that, like, at the time, I felt like I was hitting a severe wall in terms of my writing. Like, I didn't know if I was able to, like, find anything that was going to be compelling.
And Lord, do we know what was coming then.
Yeah, and, well, week one, I was able to, like, thrive on it. It's like, you know what, let's do it. Like, I didn't really see it as a peer pressure, but, like, at the time, I felt like I was starting to round into form, at least. And there's enough craziness to survive off it.
Yeah, because
you need, like, the right kind of craziness. Like, there are weeks where it's just, like, dry. I feel like last week was pretty slow.
Yeah.
But, like this week, I mean, I'm hoping it's going to be all right. I mean, sometimes you just have the right spark, I feel like.
Now, 3 weeks into that same season, for the first time, you split off a game from the main Sports Ball series, Days of Our Steelers, which, quick aside, are the writers just on strike this season? Because we're halfway through the season, yet to have an episode of Days of Our Steelers.
I'm actually happy about that. I remember the reason why I split it off is because it would take too long and it would just eat up in the whole Sports Ball. I remember the first two were like around a minute and a half, a little too longish, but like by week 3, like a bunch of drama happened off the field. They nearly blew a 20-point lead to Tampa Bay. And I'm just sitting there like, oh, God, I got to split this off. Hopefully I'll never do this again. And week 4 happened and week 4 happened. It just keeps going off the field drama. And then it happens Then it happens on the field. And it's like, Jesus Christ. By like week 17 and the beginning of the playoffs, I'm just like, please stop. Please stop. For the love of God, I'm tired of doing this. And then Antonio Brown keeps going into the offseason. It's like, Jesus Christ, I'm not done. Fuck you. It's a thing when I'm able to put an hour and 45 minutes into an entire fucking season. Like, Jesus. And I made that into like a complete series because I had an epilogue that I had finished up and I didn't want to release it separately because I didn't think it was worth it.
Okay, so I'm guessing this would also apply to any of the other videos you had to split off, like The Greatest Game, Dallas.
The Greatest Game, Dallas, Saxonville Abbey. Yeah, I feel like there's like too much to really talk about in one setting. Like, I'm not going to do one this week because I just wasn't really much off the field drama. Dallas played like a legit team, and I mean, I don't think Days of Our Steelers is really in the cards because there hasn't been any off-field drama, I feel like.
Yeah, your team is playing way too good for that right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, winning usually cures the ills unless you're the 93 Houston Oilers. That is a vid I want to get to in the future because that is the ultimate soap opera in sports. It was Days of Our Steelers before Days of Our Steelers. If you ever look up that year, it is fucking insane.
We're talking about the same Oilers that blew a massive lead to the.
Yep. Yes, that was the year after.
Oh, the year after.
Year after. Yeah, and then like their owner literally said like, "You fail again, I'm gonna blow it up," because like this is like they're going into a cap year. They constantly underachieved. He's tired of losing. Like that year literally ended football in Houston because they weren't going to give him a new stadium. I think after the year they traded Warren Moon to the Vikings. Buddy Ryan left to become the head coach of the Cardinals. A bunch of other key players left. The team was broken, and then the year after they went 2-14. And then they ended up moving to Tennessee a couple years later.
All right. Now, jumping ahead to early 2019, you uploaded a series of videos titled In Which All Optimism Dies. Now, what made you want to publish your reaction to Eric Goodbranson, I believe it was, getting traded to the Penguins?
I was in the middle of a live stream for the deadline. So at the time, I was just like, maybe people want to see like an individual reaction to it. So that's where that came into it. I mean, I wish I kind of did the 2018 deadline where they traded for Chris Archer, because I was flipping shit over that. I did not want that trade to happen.
Oh, Lord.
But so that's where that came in. I unfortunately, and then sometimes it happened with 5 points.
5 points Vince,
with Daniel Jones and Andrew Thomas.
Totally broken as hell. And you were just laughing your ass off the whole time.
Death has a face and it is bold. I laughed for like 2 minutes and it was just like, it was perfect because like my mom's dog was at the house at the time,
right, and it just started,
and he was just like yelping immediately before the pick, like the dog sensed danger, like something terrible has happened.
It was
Giants draft Daniel Jones.
Everything about that lined up so perfectly.
Yes.
Well, except for 5 points bid, but hey, somebody has to suffer for it for comedy award.
Every time.
All right, now fast forward to March 11th, 2020, the day Rudy Gobert tests positive for COVID-19. And over the next 48 hours, the entire sports world comes to a halt. Now, as a YouTuber who makes a living, ostensibly, shit posting about sports, what kind of a bind did this put you in?
I mean, in that regard, it didn't really harm much for me. It hurt everybody. It wasn't just me. It was like Five, it was Flemlow. Well, Flemlow really didn't get hurt that much. He still kept momentum, but most sports YouTubers really got hurt. I mean, I remember like my sub numbers, like if you look on Social Blade, like they're down, like they dipped hard. Like views weren't really down, but like new subs were down. But what I saw that as the time was, it's like, okay, I have a chance to work on long-term projects or bucket list vids that I wouldn't have been able to get to. Like, and I felt like that was the one thing that really was positive out of it, or the only thing I would really say. Like a bunch of those vids at the time, like Jordan's history, like legacy as an executive, like that was one of them, even though that was before technically. The Jean Van de Velde vid, Marty Schottenheimer, Mike Keenan, the Wheel of Discipline. Like those were all long-term bucket list vids.
And speaking of a long-term bucket list vid, Toronto Maple Leafs, a half-century of failure, which is your longest video to date. How big of an undertaking was this, and what made you want to make this?
I've wanted to make that for a long time. It's been on it was another bucket list vid of mine for at least a couple years. And I knew it was going to be at least 30 minutes. My main thinking was, if you ever look at the Harold Ballard era, it is fascinating in terms of how horrible it was.
Yeah,
all the shenanigans just doesn't seem real. Like, it's not even like I even got to like the surface level. Like, the dude was like a massive sexist, a racist, like just a xenophobe. And not even by 2020 standards. This is by 1920 standards. Like, he was bad. And it just comes off as just like, seriously, look up any of his stuff. It's just like, it doesn't seem real. Like trading like a good player and the best friend of the captain because you think he's gaining too much power in terms of labor negotiations to try and one-up him. and eventually break him to the point where you trade him for pennies on the dollar. Dave Keon legitimately fucking him over for years to prevent him from going back to the NHL.
All right, so final question here. Like 50 to 60 years from now, when Ben Roethlisberger is now an infallible Pittsburgh sports god, if he isn't already, now, and the grandchildren of Philip Rivers are playing in the NFL, you're sitting on your rocking chair next to the skeleton of 5 Points Vids, reminiscing about the good old days. I have that in quotations. Now, 1, how do you think people will remember you? And 2, how do you want people to remember you?
That is a loaded question because I've never really thought of it that way. At the end of the day, I'm just a dude. Like, I'm nothing that special. I just, like, I shitpost on the internet. It's, at the end of the day, it is what it is. It's not like I'm trying to create this great legacy of me being a legend or anything like that. I feel like what I want to do is produce vids that don't suck. I want to produce something that people want to watch. And that's how it should be. Like, at the moment it becomes about something else, like money or views or fame, I'm done. And that's mostly because I feel like the content would suffer. That's always my goal in this. And I know it's not going to click with certain people. I understand that. Like, that's the nature of the beast. You try to please everyone, no one's happy. And that's something I've had to learn over time as well. I know when, in terms of how I want to be remembered, probably just as a shit poster. That's really about it. Like, I don't like have these great ambitions, like be like, I feel like maybe because I have experience in working in the restaurant industry and world, maybe it's mellowed me out a good bit since I was like 18 or 19. But at the end of the day, it's just videos on the internet. It's not like I'm reinventing the wheel or anything like that. I shit post about sports. And at the end of the day, it's not really that serious. I hope it's not that serious. Because there's far more important shit going on in the world, man.
That is true. All right. Thank you for your time and talking to me, Tree.
Absolutely. Not a problem, Tucker.